What's up, everybody? Soul here with another sort of Convallaria video, and today we're gonna finally take a look at Rico and get a guide out on our girl. Apologize for the delay on this one. Ended up getting sick over the weekend, and yeah, without getting too into it, I am back. I am good to go. So first and foremost, let's take a look at her trait. Most formidable boss, Rico. She gains block and jump. She's immune to frosty tile effects. Her physical attack and HP are increased by 5%. After being actively attacked, if in injured state, she recovers HP equal to 30% of her physical attack and can be triggered up to 1 time per round. She has Rage Fury, which is it gains 2 stacks when attacked and 1 stack at the end of the turn. When having 8 stacks, she gains the additional skill AoE Dragon Roar. After using it, she gains quiet mode. And so, as we can see, that Fur Rage gives her a crit increase by 3% and crit damage increased by 3% up to 8 times. So that's a very nice boost right there. And then down here, this AoE Dragon's Roar, it is an instant, jumps to the target location and deals damage, 110% AoE damage to all enemies within 2 tiles of the target. The skill multiplier is decreased by 10% for each 1 additional target hit to a minimum of 80%, so it will not drop below 80%. After attacking, it inflicts vulnerable 2 for 2 turns. If the target is dying, it additionally inflicts stun for 1 turn and removes all Fur Rage stacks, and the character then gains damage reduction 2 and Be Serious for 2 turns. And so right here, that quiet mode that cannot gain Fur Rage stacks at all, and the effect lasts for 2 turns. If they gained an extra action, the duration is reduced by 1 turn. That's a nice little tidbit right there. And we're going to jump right over here so we can take a glance at Be Serious. I'll read that off to you real quick what that does. Be Serious is the buff. It increases your crit by 100% and your crit damage by 30% for the next attack, and it's removed after triggered. It cannot be dispelled or immunized, so that's what Be Serious does for her. Now let's take a look at her ranks. She, at 2 stars, gets only 2 stacks at the start of battle as a boost. That's the only change we see at 2 stars. And then it's going down here at 3 stars. Now we're getting 10% instead of the 5%, and that can be triggered up to 2 times per round. That's auto heal when injured and getting hit. So that's really nice. We're getting an extra little boost out of that. And then also at 3 stars, now we're getting 4 stacks at the start of battle instead of 2, and then 2 stacks when attacked. So that's a nice little boost right there. And then when her deal is done, she gets 2 stacks of Fur Rage when quiet mode ends, so that's a nice little bonus too. So she goes in that quiet mode, and as soon as it ends, she automatically gets 2 stacks of Fur Rage immediately out of that. So big boost at 3 stars, decent break point. But at 4 stars, it goes a little hard again, because now she's recovering 50% of that HP instead of 30. And then she is now getting 2 stacks at the end of the turn instead of just 1. So 4 stacks to start a battle, 2 stacks and being attacked. It's the same as 3 stars. But now she gets 2 stacks at the end of her turn instead of just 1. So that's really nice. And then of course at 5 stars, she gets 15% bonus to her physical attack and HP instead of just the 10. And then the rest of it remains the same. However, at the start of the battle, she now gains 6 stacks of Fur Rage. At the start of the battle, the rest of that remains the same. And then when quiet mode ends, she now gets 4 stacks of Fur Rage instead of just 2. And then the skill AoE Dragon's Roar gains a 100% increased crit and a 20% increase to skill multiplier when attacking. So obviously 5-star pops off and does a lot of really good things right there. But you know, if I had to suggest it, honestly, I think 3 stars is a healthy stopping point. 4 stars obviously also is a good stopping point, and then 5 stars, she just kind of goes ham, if that's where you're at with it. Moving on in next, let's take a look at her abilities and rank. First, we have to acknowledge her innate ability, which is Knockback Bash. This is a physical attack. It has a 3 energy cost. It's a single target attack, and it deals 140% damage and knocks the target back 2 tiles. There's nothing wrong with this. It's nice. it's something you're really just not going to use once you get her abilities unlocked. So nice, decent ability, but forgettable. Looking at the ranks, at rank 1, on the left we have Charge Pursuit. This is an instant. It charges to at one enemy in a cross-shaped range around the character and deals 30% damage, and she gains immunity to preempt. So that's pretty nice. There's nothing wrong with it. 3-turn cooldown, no energy cost. I personally obviously don't have it, so I just didn't really visualize it, and I did use what was on the right, which is Warrior of Frost. And so this is a passive. When the character is on a frosty tile, it decreases damage taken by 30% and increases movement by 1. Really like that. This is what I ended up going with, and so this is what I would suggest you to pick up. I really enjoyed it and found use for it. Whereas what's on the left, I did not. However, if you're looking for that HP and you'd rather have that instead of the defense, there's nothing wrong with that. However, this is what I'd suggest you get on the right, Warrior of Frost. At rank 3, you have on the left Hammer Smash. This is a physical damage attack, and it attacks a specified target, dealing 40% AoE damage, knocking them back 4 tiles, with a skill multiplier increased by 70% against targets with knockback immunity. Within performs a pursuit, dealing 75% AoE damage to all enemies in a cross-shaped range for 2 tiles of the target, and dispels 2 buffs. When having Be Serious, all skill multipliers of this skill are increased by 10% and inflicts stun after performing the pursuit. So this is a phenomenal ability. This is a lot of fun to use. It's really good. The only thing is that cooldown. I didn't really use Rico and Team Comps where she had a tremendous amount of cooldown reduction, and so this kind of was problematic for me. I didn't like having to wait for it, but it's not the end of the world. It's only 2 turns, yeah. But the effect of it's pretty decent if you can time it right. Obviously, you want to utilize this, and she's coming and she gets that Be Serious buff. This is a pretty decent ability, a 3 energy and 2 cooldown. Yeah, pretty decent ability. Over here on the right is what I'm suggesting you to pick up, and that is Milk Power Boost. This is a healing instant. It restores HP equal to 80% of her physical attack, and she gains 2 stacks of damage lock equal to 45% of max HP, and then her physical defense and magic defense are raised by 2 and for 2 turns, and she gains 2 stacks of Fur Rage. It's a lot off of an instant heal. It has a 4-turn cooldown, and it is forever. But that damage lock is really cool, something unique, and so that is a buff for damage taken from a single attack cannot exceed a certain percentage of max HP. After triggering, it removes 1 stack, and so she gets 2 stacks of this, and that max is 45% of her max HP. And so this in particular probably would be really beneficial in those really big hard fights, especially when we're going into things that are considered in-game, or the enemies just kind of hit for egregious amounts and can one-shot almost no matter what. She's going to absolutely be able to resist those attacks. She's guaranteed to survive 2 of them with this ability, and of course it's an instant. And then her whole mechanics knockback, where a lot of times we like to utilize that in those in-game scenarios and knock those enemies off the stage and just be done with them. So this is really powerful, and this is what I'd suggest you to pick up absolutely. However, if you have the Castellan you're interested, Hammer Smash is a phenomenal skill, definitely worth getting. At rank 5, we have First Strike. It's a reaction. When being actively attacked from the front or side, it performs a preempt, dealing 70% damage, and can be activated 1 time per round. This is negligible, in my opinion. This is something that it doesn't read well, and yeah, this is just skippable compared to Never Give Up on the right. This is a reaction. It reduces melee damage taken by 15%. She gains Unyielding, and when triggered, it recovers all energy, removes Quiet Mode, and then gains 8 stacks of Fur Rage. She also gains Speed 4. So really good stuff. Unyielding, of course, is when you return to battle, and she's gaining 35% of that HP as soon as she returns to that battle. Can only be activated 1 time in a battle, just a heads up, but yeah, it's really good. And then she's getting 200 speed. When that happens, it outright negates and removes the Quiet Mode, and yeah, she gains 8 stacks of Fur Rage so that she can instantly use that Awu Dragon's Roar and this, that, and the third. So really good stuff. Just brings her back in full capacity and from that battle, that Unyielding. So really good reaction. This is what I'd highly suggest you pick up at rank 5. At rank 7, this is a Castalia rank right here because on the left you've got Hammer Time. And so you've got 2 skills in this. It's a decision where the first is it deals 70% AoE damage to all enemies in a 3x4 area in the target direction and inflicts defense down and no healing for 2 turns. The knockbacks of the first enemy in each column by 1 tile. And then the skill multiplier is increased by 20% against enemies with immunity to knockback. And then of course when you have that Be Serious, the skill multiplier is increased by 15% on top of that. And then the other one is, and this is like frontal AoE, 3x4 area. And then this one right here is just a full AoE right here, like all around her, as it suggested right here, Earth Shattering Tornado. This skill does 65% AoE damage to all enemies within 3 tiles of the character and inflicts defense down 2 and no healing. And then knocks back the first enemy within a cross-shaped range for 2 tiles by 2 tiles. And then when you have that Be Serious buff, it knocks them back one additional tile and inflicts move down 1. And so this is really nice. General AoE right here, everything around her. Frontal AoE, 3 blocks, 4 up high, like Miguel's ability. So Mourner. And so this is a phenomenal choice decision right here. Absolutely preferred to run this most of the time when I was running her as a damage dealer, trying to do those AoE attacks. I found that I preferred this over the other ability down here, Hammer Smash, but Hammer Smash is still really good. She's just got too many options. She's got too many good things going on. So Hammer Time, really, really good. However, if you don't have the Castalia, I would absolutely suggest you to pick up, well, let me rephrase that. Maybe you have the Castalia, maybe you're not interested in playing her as a damage dealer because the Hammer Time is for playing her as a damage dealer. If you want her to be a tank or prioritize on knockback, or to prioritize on counterattacking, you want Try to Make Me Mad, which we'll get to in a minute. Hammer Time is what you want if she's AoE focused and damage dealing focused. So on the right is what I would suggest you get personally. And this is counterattacking. Rico right here, Try to Make Me Mad. It's the support ability. She gains 2 stacks of Fur Rage, attack up 2, and crit damage 1 for 2 turns. And she performs Roar Fury. And so this is a buff. And then until the start of the next 2 turns. This is a buff that has a 100% chance to trigger block when receiving an enemy's physical attack from the front or side. When blocking, damage is additionally reduced by 20%. After being actively attacked by an enemy within 2 tiles of the front or side, it performs a strike back, dealing 70% AoE physical damage to all enemies within 1 tile radius of the target and can be triggered up to 2 times per round. During Roar Fury, you gain 1 additional stack of Fur Rage after being attacked. This effect cannot be dispelled or immunized. And so this is the way to go if you want her to get those counterattacks and strike back. This is what you're going to absolutely want. So at rank 7, you've got a decision. If you're going with the counterattacking build, you want Try to Make Me Mad on the right. 2 energy cost, no cooldown. And then if you want just straight AoE damage, you want Hammer Time on the left. Bear in mind, this is a defender, but she is attack based, and you absolutely want to raise her attack. So this is a tough choice. I like having versatility. Rank 7, it's up to you. Rank 9, up here on the right, we have Critical Strike. This deals 100% physical damage and increases your crit by 15% before attacking. And so there's decent basic attack. However, I went with what was on the left, which is No Escape. This is a 70% AoE physical attack damage, deals damage to all enemies within 1 tile radius of the target, and then knocks them back, the center target, by an additional 2 tiles. So really good stuff there. I like this. It's a nice knockback in her basic attack and also some good AoE. Really good stuff right there. This is what I'd suggest you get at rank 9. Sorry, I'm kind of spaced out right there. Rank 11, on the right you have World's My Oyster, and so this is her leader aura. It's for all drifters. It has that basic buff 10-20 for attack defense. And then if you come down right here, when performing attacks and strikebacks, damage dealt is increased by 5% for each 1 target hit, up to 15%. If the target is injured in an injured state, the crit and crit damage are increased by 10%. So this is really good. This leadership aura is nice on her for that counterattacking build. I would suggest it if that's what you're interested in utilizing her for. Really good, solid stuff right here. However, what's on the left is also potentially good. and that is Crackling Sparks. This is a passive where she gains 2 stacks of Fur Rage after casting a class skill attack. When dealing collision damage, she deals AoE physical damage equal to 25% of her physical attack to all enemies within 1 tile radius of both parties involved in the collision. Attack increased by 15% against targets with an immunity to knockback, and then before attacking, and it inflicts physical defense down and magic defense down 2 for 2 turns. So this is a really, really good passive. I utilized this. I had a lot of fun with this. I did find that it didn't quite... you're not using this for the damage. You're using this for the debuffs. It's nice little bonus damage, don't get me wrong. But you're using this for the debuffs and you're using this for the Fur Rage stacks. The extra damage is just a bonus. Kind of reminds me of Starry Crossbow. It's kind of hard. No, it's not hard, but the collisions don't occur as often as you'd like to. So that's another thing too. If there's lots of enemies bunched up, then this is just going to go insane. It's in it. But if you don't have that scenario and your enemies are a little spread out and whatnot, this really does not do a lot at all. So it kind of really depends on the map and the scenario too. So I'm going to leave that up to you. This is another Castalia level. It's tough. She's got basically 3 Castalia levels if you want to utilize her in both spectrums as far as AoE damage dealing attack and then versus counter attack. Definitely forced into a decision with Rico, and she's Castalia hungry. With that said, let's talk about the builds. And so as you can see right here, this is my damage dealing build on Rico. And so we're going to take a look at her abilities. We got No Escape as that basic attack. We're using that Never Give Up reaction. I have that Crackling Sparks on her, Milk Power Boost, and then Hammer Time was my preference for damage dealing. Overall, gives me 2 different ways to do it, and I like it, the versatility. And as far as damage dealing weapons, I found that the Gale Sword performed the best and most consistently and did the most damage, and so this is what I would suggest you to put on her. This is something that we had access to throughout Night Crimson, and a lot of people have 5-star Gale Swords, so this is really nice. It's a decent option. And then the Shield of Justice is a very solid item to put on her. You're not limited to this. This is just what I found worked on her and worked really well, and I like to run on her. And then of course for that resonance, I use the sword and the wand because I want her to be mobile. I want her getting around. I want her doing that extra damage, and so it's really, really good. And then for the Terror Whisper, the Dreaming Magician absolutely performs the best all day, every day on her, the AoE damage. So this is what I have gotten for her, which of course, when we're talking about stats, for me, I prioritized, and especially in damage dealing build, that physical attack. Then I want her to have that HP and or physical defense in behind that. And so as you can see in this Terror Whisper, we have those 2. Pretty happy with that, and we've got some HP as well. And then that's what I'm prioritizing in those resonances too. I want that physical attack, I want some HP, and then defense in there as well if it can be helped. So that's her damage dealing build. Now let's take a look at her AoE, her counter attacking build. So for counter attacking, we're running the same basic attack, same reaction. We've got Try to Make Me Mad here on her. We've got that Milk Power Boost again, and then we're picked up that World's My Oyster Aura for a nice little bonuses there that we get the damage and from those strike backs. And so for her weapon, we have her trinket here. Her signature weapon. And so that is Hammer Dragon Rise. We're doing additional damage right there when we're striking back. And then of course it's boosting each one target hit in those AoE attacks. Really, really nice stuff right there. And then for her trinket, I use that Crystal Burst Armor. This is a great thing right here. We're doing a little bonus damage, and then of course we got some HP rolled into it. This was a 1-star. It's kind of unfortunate, but it still did a job, and I enjoyed it. And then of course for that resonance, I'm running that 1 Pentacle mix because I wanted to decrease the physical damage taken. She is acting primarily as a tank in this role, and she's got to be able to soak up as much damage as possible. I will say, at no point was she able to just soak up so much damage. She just felt impervious. Like Aisha can just eat damage and then heal and do really well. Rico's not doing that. she's not able to eat damage to the capacity that they are, so you have to be a little more tactful. She needs to kill and eat damage. So, and then of course I got that Dream Magician as her Tarot Whisper. But with that said, her eating damage and not being able to do it non-stop, the priority is, of course, in my opinion on this build, defense is really good, but you have to pick up some of that attack as well. And so as you see, we got that attack, and then we got some defensive stats in there, but it's got to be a good little mix. She can't just have tons and tons of defense and or tons of attack. It's got to be a healthy mix, and she does need a little bit of support, at least at 1 star. I don't know how she does later in higher stars, but I imagine she'd be pretty crazy. The quiet is the big issue. If you can create a lot of mobility in her and you get that AoE Dragon's Roar, and you can mitigate the quiet, and she can just be all over the place, soaking damage, striking back, it would be different, you know, because then you can kind of zone and control and make sure you're not eating it up all the time. But once she kind of gets surrounded and starts taking those hits, aside from the knockbacks that she's dealing out, she's just taking those hits, and it gets to be tough. She gets overwhelmed really quickly. An honorable mention on the weapon too is, of course, Tuning Hammer. This is a phenomenal choice on her if you lack the signature weapon, or you want, you know, or you're lacking Gale Sword, whatever it may be. This is actively dispelling as far in all of her attacks, and yes, that's an AoE dispel in her hands. So really nice. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Of course, if you don't have that, other alternatives exist, you know, on her defensive build where she's taken a lot of hits and maybe counterattacking. You might want Hollow Axe. Definitely a solid choice on her for sure. Another great solid choice, of course, is that Brutal Axe. We absolutely love that HP boost you get out of that. And of course, when you have lower HP percentage than your opponents, you're ignoring 40% of that defense. So that's a big deal. Really good stuff right there. 2 very solid options as alternatives for Rico. With that said, let's take a look at her in battle. There we are. I brought only 4 people, giving Rico a little bit of company. We're going to see her in some AoE action. Agatha's more or less going to do some heals and cleanup. And we're going to use Tear to keep the energy rolling and keep her buffed. And then Coco's going to help us with those cooldown needs and keeping those crits looking smexy. We just teleport over, AoE, right away. Pick up the meat so we can go ahead and get another little act in. And more AoE. Really good stuff there. As you can see, they come up and start smacking us. We're not too fussed with it. The amount of AoE she does is pretty sick. Here we go. Tear comes up. Gets a little buff again. Coco doing the same. Rico getting that AoE Dragon's Roar off. Give that a little milk drink. Good AoE damage. Just shredding them. Really good stuff right there. Those back attacks we will not counter. Good little heal right there. Here comes the enemies. There's plenty of them. Lots for us to just smack up. Let's activate the birdcage because, you know, why not? He's back there. Let's share some damage if he gets it. Beautiful AoE attack. Beautiful passive with the crackling sparks. Coco's a little smacky smack. We'll have Agatha clean that guy up. Here they come. Beautiful stuff. Coco with the Iron Pot Stew. We'll freshen up, reduce the cooldowns. Nice little bit of AoE. Reducing that energy cost too, of course. Agatha with the back row cleanup. Nice little buff. We get ready for the next round of AoE madness. Beautiful. Crackling sparks, clean that guy up. Perfect. Agatha finishes that person off. A little smacky smack. Get the scrolls. Really, I don't know why, but AoE Dragon's Roar. Let's go. And a little drinky drink before we knock them off the map. So there it is. Rico in her glory. She is an absolute monster. We took her into that battle with her AoE damage build, which I'll show you right here. Remember, we got those crackling sparks doing some nice damage. I like that Gale sword when we're running it. Absolutely good stuff. She is a beast. Knocking them back, collision, sparking off extra damage. It's a ton of fun. And then, like I said, using that hammer time, you have 2 different ways to deal the damage. So 2 different ways you can do lots of AoE, and with a decent energy cost of only like 2, and with no cooldown on those abilities. I found myself loving that and wanting to use it all the time. Really good stuff there. Rico pops off and does great. As you can see right here, this is her rating on the screen. She absolutely comes in like a beast and does all of that. She's so capable. She's pretty daggum hardy and resilient. She's got a 10.5 in physical attack, a 10.5 in tanking, a 4.5 in healing. Her heals are pretty nice. She's got that 0 in magic damage. She's not doing none of that. 12.5 in the buffs. She's buffing herself like crazy. And then debuffs are 10.5. She's absolutely popping off those stuns and then shredding them, giving them vulnerables, defense downs, things like that. Really, really nice. And a 13 in that utility, because it's just that leadership aura is really good. And then she's got tons of ways to move the opponent, knock them back, you name it. Really, really good stuff. And an overall rating of 61.5. This is a fun character that absolutely has a lot of utility, a lot of capability, and will be an asset in anyone's team and or roster. Rico is a ton of fun, and I highly suggest anyone who's on the fence to go ahead and feel comfortable going for her, because what she can do is pretty great in my opinion. Plus, she's got a lot of personality. She's a fun character to play. That's a big deal. This character, I mean, her voice acting is on point. The animation's fun. She's just a fun, well-designed character. And yeah, that's what the game's supposed to be about, is the enjoyment of the game. And she is enjoyable to play. Can't wait for a little more synergy for her. There's not a tremendous amount. I kind of felt like she would do a lot of good with a taunt. Kind of hurts my heart she doesn't have a taunt. I put her on an ice team and played with that, which I'll show you down the road. That's pretty decent, but once again, decent. You know, I think synergy-wise, she does best as just an out-and-out damage dealer, and in my opinion, as a damage dealer, she's not the best out-and-out damage dealer, if that makes sense. She's a strong AoE drifter damage dealer, but that's a role we don't really have on the drifter side. But you know, it's yeah, Rico's fantastic. Huge shout out and thank you to my Patreon members. You guys are the ones that really make the difference and allow me to make these pools, make these guides. Your support is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm completely grateful. If you're interested in joining and supporting the channel, make sure you check out the link below. You'll also find a link to our Discord where we talk all things sort of Convallaria and then some. Please feel free to join us. I'd absolutely love to see you in our family and in our group, in our army, if you will. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please take care, and I wish you the best of luck in all of your sort of Convallaria adventures and then some. Take care out there, kick some bootai, and get it. Bye.